Welcome to another episode of Love and Movies. I'm Thomas,
And I'm Morgan.
and we're going to talk about the Iron Claw.
Yep.
Which,
So the Iron Claw, I guess brand new movie. It came out in December. Which I guess also we should say Happy New Year because this is our first 2024 podcast.
it is.
So it came out in December. It's still in theaters at the time of the recording. It has Zac Efron. It has Jeremy Allen White, which a lot of people know from Shameless. And it has a lot of other people, including like Lily James, who I know Lily James from. She played live action Cinderella. But it's actually based on true story, and I say based on true story because we know that with all true story film, stuff is dramatized to an extent. But it's a story of the Von Erich brothers, who are wrestlers, and this is like late 70s, early 80s.
It goes into the 90s.
Yeah. And it's a sad story.
Extremely sad, extremely depressing, horrific even.
Yep. Which doesn't mean you shouldn't see the movie.
No, it's a great movie.
Yeah,
the storytelling is well done.
Good story, good movie. And it's like I mean, we're not huge wrestling fans, but like I know you watched wrestling when you were younger.
Significantly. It was a huge thing in my life.
Yeah. Like I watched wrestling when I was like a teenager. And I have watched like the reality shows of like the WWE female roster, like the Total Divas and the Bella Twins and stuff like that. But I did not know about who the Von Erich brothers were before we walked in the theater. Did you?
I did not. They were before my time frame, so like I may have been watching wrestling like when they were around, but I wouldn't remember anyone either. Like I didn't really like start knowing wrestlers till like maybe 7, 8, 9. And then that's what, like when I got into it fairly big time. But so they were like probably like right on the cusp of leaving. And they weren't even like that well known because only one of the brothers, Kerry Von Erich, actually made it to the WWF at the time. It was like 1992, 1993, maybe.
Yeah.
So.
But basically, like their dad did wrestling, so he brought the kids up wrestling. So it's 4 brothers, and I feel like not only is it a story of their like wrestling career, but also like the struggle to like you kind of got an overbearing parent who wants you to follow in their footsteps and wants you to do things their way. And do you make them proud or do you follow your own path? And
well, it wasn't even sorry, but it was more like he wanted to have the world championship belt. The father, Fritz von Erich, he wanted to have the belt more than anything in this world. And so he instilled that in his 4 sons. Like, we have to have this belt. The belt needs to belong to this family. It's got to come to us. So it wasn't necessarily like he was like, oh, like I would love to see you wrestling because I loved wrestling. It was more like I didn't get my dream, so now you've got to go get my dream for me, sort of thing.
Yeah. So I mean, it's dealing like it's watching that, and then like one thing that kind of struck me. So like this is like they're from Texas, and I feel like it was like the stereotypical like old school Texas family. The mother was God-fearing and like she would actually say, which I thought was kind of weird, like when so basically like a typical overbearing dad in this type of film, the dad is pushing the brothers, and you can tell that one is not really into it. So one of the brothers, who's played by Zac Efron, who's Kevin Von Erich, goes to the mom and's like, "Mom, Dad's pushing." I'm trying to remember which brother it was.
David.
David. No, Mike. Mike.
Yeah,
Um,
Mike.
Mike is the youngest brother. Like he's pushing Mike too hard, blah blah blah. And the mom was just like, you know, basically not my problem. You deal with it with your brothers and your dad. It's like, what? Like, okay. I thought that was a little weird.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely extreme for any circumstance, because you figure like moms, would be more like my child is being, like it wouldn't matter who it was, they would be,
Yeah.
teeth out to throat sort of situation,
Yeah, like very like, okay, I'll talk to your dad.
Yeah.
I'll get him to back off kind of
And
thing.
yeah, like in all Limelight, I really feel like it didn't portrait the mother very well. Yeah, it was very, like, she was very passive as an individual, like extremely passive. And like there were certain instances where it was just, and she, in all honesty, she's hardly in the movie. Like she's in the movie, but she's not in the movie, if that makes any sense.
Right. I mean, the movie is definitely more about the brothers,
Yeah.
which is fine, but obviously like the parents have an influence in their lives.
Yeah.
But basically, and like we say in every episode, this is a spoiler show. We talk about the movie, so if you haven't seen the movie, you're about to get spoilers.
Yes.
Basically, Kevin Von Erich talks about a curse on the family. And he tells that to his girlfriend, who becomes his wife, who's Pam, who's played by Lily James. And she's like, I'm not scared of the curse. I love your family. Like, she, like, I feel like in a way, like, she was like best thing that happened to Kevin. But basically, the other three brothers die.
Yeah.
The first one that dies is David.
No. David does pass away first.
He's like on his way to
Japan.
He goes to Japan right after Kevin actually marries Pam. Is like basically on the path of getting the world championship belt that the dad wants so bad. But Kevin sees at the wedding that like David isn't doing good. He's like throwing up blood.
Like significantly.
Yeah, and he's like, dude, you need to go to the doctor. And he's like, no, I'll be fine. And once he gets to Japan, he dies in his hotel room from what, like a ruptured intestine?
Yeah, ruptured intestine. And it was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's one of those, like, you could tell by like how they were filming it, like the cinematography of it, like, okay, something's about to happen to David.
Yeah.
So like him dying wasn't the shock, it was more how he passed away was the shock to me. And he's in Japan, so like he wasn't around his family, which is like that's just sad.
Yeah. Well, they say he passed away in his sleep because of it. And what he was sleeping, it ruptured. End of story. Like he didn't wake back up, sort of thing.
So I mean, I guess there is that he hopefully died peacefully.
Yeah.
But then of course the dad then brings up the youngest brother
at the funeral. You gotta crevice that. At the funeral, just buried his son. He says, "Okay, we still need to get this belt."
Yeah.
Like not even
like,
24
really?
hours. Yeah.
So like he's bringing up the youngest, which is Mike, which Mike wants to like be a musician. Like he's got a band and like wrestling is not his aspiration. And
very talented musician too.
Yes.
Like he could have made the distance as a musician 100%, played numerous instruments, sang. I mean, there was no reason why he should even step near a ring other than for like cinematography thing, because that's what he was interested in as well as the cinematography aspect.
Yeah. Or, at the most as a valet, which is just the person that walks out with the wrestler.
Yeah.
And then you've got the middle son, Kerry, which is Jeremy Allen White, who was actually like going to the Olympics.
Yeah.
And I don't know what year this was, but I guess they were going to Russia.
Yeah. 82, I think it said.
So, this is before both of our times in real
Yeah.
life. But I guess the president said we're not sending our Olympians to Russia because
The Cold War. They
the
didn't
Cold
want
War.
anything potentially happening to them, kidnapped or injured or, ransomed or anything
Yeah.
like that.
So Kerry had this like bright Olympic future that was just taken away. So he comes home and he joins the wrestling business.
He's not even home for 24 hours, it seems like. And he's like, son, I think you should be a wrestler.
Yeah.
And it's like, dude just got home. Like, you could have given him at least like a week to,
Yeah.
you know, acclimate, and nope, within 24 hours.
Yeah. So, like I said, you've got the remaining three brothers in the wrestling business. Mike is like he doesn't have the wrestling physique. He's very skinny. I wouldn't say small because he does seem like a tall person.
Yeah.
But just doesn't have the wrestling physique that you would think. So
Yeah,
kind of,
he didn't try and work out. He didn't go hit the gym. Like, you can tell all the other brothers are like in the gym religiously. Obviously,
yes.
Zach was probably the most muscular out of all of them, but he started wrestling. Kevin started wrestling when he was 17. Like, he put on the road at 17, started wrestling, so he was in the gym like religiously.
Yeah.
Kerry, obviously, because he was a shot putter, obviously working on his form and things of that, so he was extremely, muscular as well. And then Mike, or not Mike, David was muscular, not to the same extent as both Kerry and Kevin, but he obviously hit the gym. Like, it wasn't like,
Yeah.
like, it didn't look Mike had ever even looked at a gym, let alone
Yeah.
been in one.
Like it kind of looked like he couldn't lift more than like 10, 20 pounds. Like,
Yeah.
you know, um, but if I'm not mistaken, like Mike gets I think it's his first match.
His very first match, he goes for like 4 drop kicks back to back. On his 4th drop kick, he doesn't hit the landing correctly, because when you do a drop kick, you're supposed to land. You're supposed to turn, as you hit the person. You're supposed to turn to the drop kick where you can break fall on your hands and turn your face, so that way your body doesn't absorb it. He doesn't land correctly. He lands on his shoulder, and he essentially rips his shoulder out of socket and out of place, and he has to go in for surgery immediately, because it's a bad fall. He took a bad fall.
Yeah.
And so they rush him into surgery.
And it's supposed to be a
And
routine surgery, by the way.
easy surgery, any surgeon could have done it, sort of thing. Just stitching the muscles back up, making sure everything doesn't disconnect. But he goes into sepsis. He actually, there's a technical name for it. I can't remember what it's called. Where essentially he body goes into shock because of the surgery aspect. And at one point, they said that his fever, because he developed a fever, was at 107 for 2 minutes. If you're in the medical field, you know exactly what that means. That's brain damage. Like, you're getting brain damage. And for 2 minutes, that's not a small portion. Which was the setup, right? So once you hear that, like, my thought process, because I've been in the medical field, like, I know those numbers pretty regularly. I was like, he'll never play an instrument again.
Yeah.
because even though the surgery was successful, because of the fever for how long it was, it there was there's damage, permanent damage up there, and
But
you
I
could
think also
tell.
he goes into like a coma for like a couple days, if I remember right.
I think it was like a week.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't. Yeah, so that's the way the body's protecting itself, especially when it hits that high of a fever.
Yeah.
And I think within a couple days they had a press conference um, about it because being a wrestler, this is all based in Dallas, by the way. So like the dad owns the wrestling ring. It's his his hall. His everyone wrestles under him. So he's got a home production. So they come out for all the sports journalists come out. They do a press conference, and during the press conference, you can just tell. You can just look at him like he's never going to be the same because his answers are slow.
Yeah.
He has a hard time remembering, forming words.
Yeah. I mean, you can definitely tell something. I mean, like it's sad because so Kevin is there with him to help him do the interview, and I'm watching it the whole time. Like in my head, I'm like, the dad must have made them do the interview because they're not ready, you know? And also, you got to think about it, they're still mourning their other brother's death. And now the youngest brother, you know.
Yeah, because it doesn't really give you like a good time frame, like what happens, like the jump offs between dates and things like that. You sort of have to guess.
But I think even in the press conference, they even said, like, this is really sad, even, especially, after we're just lost David. Yeah. So, I mean, not that much time has passed in is how they're presenting it. But I mean, basically, Mike comes home. He's got the impediment. He's got the brain damage, and they don't really like go into detail specifically, but you can just tell, he's not 100%. He's not the man he was before. And
Well, at the same instance, so we're not talking about Carrie because Carrie actually just had won the belt too, like a night or two prior. Because at this time frame, he sends Carrie to go wrestle whoever.
Yeah. So like, I guess Mike was gonna go after the title that David was gonna get. And of course now Mike is unable to, so the dad sends Carrie. And so Carrie, goes through the whole, path to get the title. And I want to say it was he wrestled Ric Flair.
It's a possibility. Oh yeah, he did wrestle Ric Flair.
Yeah. So like, because like Ric Flair's in it, which I mean, I know who Ric Flair is. He's of course a legend in WWE, back then WWF, and he's actually from North Carolina, which is where we live.
Yep. Doesn't mean we're Ric Flair fans, by the way.
No. But obviously, when somebody of that caliber is from where you are, you learn about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, like Carrie wins the title. And of course, the family's celebrating. It's this great moment, and you just kind of like you're watching it, and you're like, okay, something good has finally happened for the family. Maybe the dad will back off. Like, maybe everything will be okay.
So, but he comes home that night, Carrie does, with the belt, and he gets stupid drunk because they're celebrating, obviously. And Kevin can tell that something is wrong. Like, that Carrie's just not 100%, right?
Yeah.
So he's sort of like, hey, like, what's going on? Like, you want to talk
okay?
about it?
Yeah.
And Carrie's just like, no, I'm just going to go for a drive. And mind you, Carrie's daily driver is a motorcycle. Like, and so he's drunk, goes out for a drive. And this is, early 80s, mid 80s at this point, maybe. So obviously, no one's like, no, Carrie, don't go out. You've been drinking. You can't, stay home. Like, don't touch a wheel. No, it's sort of like, okay, just be safe.
And I feel like also like this was also back when it was a man's not supposed to show his emotions. Like he's
Yeah.
not supposed to show if he's hurting. And like in my opinion, Kerry has been sad or depressed about losing his Olympic chances since that happened and did not like come to terms with it, mourn it,
Mm-hmm.
heal from it in the way he should have, because
Yeah.
it just wasn't done back then. Like
Yeah.
it was just, okay, that's done, be a man, man up, and on to the next thing.
Also, I mean, like, it never, like, you see Carrie do drugs. Like, you see him do
He's popping
uh,
pills.
popping pills, getting stuck up with needles. So who knows if it's, who knows what it is. He's also, it looked like he was taking lines, doing lines too at one
Yeah.
point.
So
So, I mean, obviously, man's not well, not healthy.
yeah, I mean, like I saw it as like he's doing the drugs to cope with his
Everything.
mental and emotional pain.
Plus physical pain too, because wrestling's not
Yeah.
gentle on the body.
No.
It's really not.
But he goes for the motorcycle ride, and of course they can't have a happy ending. He gets into a car. He gets into an accident, and he has lost his foot.
Well. The crazy thing is, like, we don't know exactly the time frame, because first it shows his back and his shoulders, and all you see is road rash and bad road rash, because obviously safety gear wasn't like a major thing back then. So at first you're thinking like, oh, that's not too bad. Maybe a month of healing and he'll be perfectly fine. Because it's all panned. Like, you got to realize the cinematography is amazing. Like, they don't really like show anything. They don't.
They don't show the accident.
They don't show the accident. They don't show David's death. They don't like go into these crazy like over the drawn things. It's just like foreshadowing, bam, in your face. And it's not like they're like a horror movie today where like you're seeing guys' heads getting blown off sort of thing. It's just
nothing gory,
very subtle, but very impactful. Because like first you're thinking like, oh, like, oh, he's perfectly not
he'll be
fine,
okay.
but he'll be okay.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, like, they pan out, he's at the fridge and his leg's gone. And you're just like, oh fuck.
I think he's like even in crutches. So even like when you see the crutches, you're thinking, okay, well maybe it's just a broken leg
broken
or
femur,
broken something.
Leg, yeah.
And then
or twisted
out.
or just
pan out and his foot is gone. And you're just like, oh man. Because of course, like in my mind, I'm like, okay, wrestling career's over. You need 2 feet to wrestle.
Yep.
So now he's got to deal with that.
So he of course loses the belt. He has to give it back to Ric Flair because he can't hold on to the belt in that condition.
He can't defend it, yeah.
And again, like within a very short time frame, Kerry's like they have a homemade ring in their backyard, sort of, that they built, of course. And Kevin and Kerry are on the ring trying to, do some stuff. And Kerry's like, I need to be back in the ring. I need to be back in the ring, like, now. And Kevin's like, dude, no, just take some time. Like, take some time. Like, you'll get there, but you need some time. Like, don't force it. You're clearly in pain. Don't force it. And, Kerry's just not having any of it. So they sort of duke it out.
Well, I guess we should also say that the reason why Kerry was able to get into the ring is he got a prosthetic foot.
Well, I don't know if it's a prosthetic foot, because it just looked like he put his foot in a wrestling boot and super tied that fucker super tight.
No,
there
was a foot attached to like what was tied up.
Oh, I didn't see that part.
There was a foot, and then there was basically leather with like the straps to like tie it onto the bottom of his leg.
Yeah.
And like that had to be painful because of how tightly he had to put it on.
Well, they
'Cause, I
even
mean,
show him when trying to walk out the door, and he walks and then falls over, bends over, and just screams, and like you just see the amount of just pure physical pain on this man.
And that's just walking. I mean,
Just
obviously
walking, yeah.
wrestling is a lot harder.
Yeah.
But WWF, because that's what it was back then, does let Kerry come back, but obviously he's not at the caliber that he was.
Yeah, I don't think it ever says that. So it never says when Kerry signs over to WWF, so I think he's still working under his dad's ring.
No, they actually do say that he went to the WWF.
Yeah, at the end. You're jumping. So like the belt that they got when it was Ric Flair was like the WCCW World Champion something belt.
Yeah.
But what we jumped over, is that at the same instance that both brothers are wrestling in the ring and having this heated moment, Mike is walking down the road.
Oh, yeah.
And he's got like a sleeping bag in his arms.
And before he left the house, he took a lot of, like, a whole bottle of pills.
A shit ton of pills.
Yeah.
A shit
and
ton
the brothers
of pills.
don't see Mike, so they're having a heated conversation. And in the background,
yep,
we see
you
Mike
see it like
walking.
a lamp with Mike walking.
Yeah. And then the next day, nobody can find Mike.
Well, they see the note first.
Yeah.
It says, I mean, and we should have probably stipulated, like, we don't, if you have anyone who's depressed or anything of that matter, please seek help. I'm a suicide survivor myself. Like, I've attempted suicide a very, very long time ago. This movie put me in my feelings like a lot.
Yeah.
In fact, like, it's hard to tell, but I'm even tearing up thinking about it a little bit. Because like it is just it's an emotional thing, like just watching it. And I stuck through it. Like, you know, it was difficult. Because I could feel like I could just imagine the pain, because I went through that pain myself, where you feel like nothing is good and nothing is great, and that's all you can do. But that's not the case, right? So if you or you know someone who is in that state of mind, be there for them. Call help. There's a new hotline. I think it's like 999. I think is the new.
Which it might just be for North Carolina, the state that we live in, but yeah, I mean, like, once I saw that is where it was going with Mike, like, I immediately, like, thought about you and thought about, like, what the emotional toll that watching this was going to take on you.
Yeah, it's 988 is the number. It doesn't say for North Carolina, it just says 988. So I'm assuming it's for all states and everything like that. Yeah, it's just it's a suicide crisis lifeline. It doesn't specify. It's in the United States, 7 days a week, 24 hours. You know, so
okay.
You know, but it was, thinking about it now, in the movie, I was so wrapped up in the movie and the storytelling that like it wasn't like that big of a emotional draw. Like, obviously I was sucked in, like I was like, oh shit, and thinking about it. But now talking about it, like it's a little bit harder talking about it.
Yeah.
But I'm okay. It's just like a natural process. If you can talk to other people who had suicide attempts, and it's not necessarily like the reminiscing or the thought process that really brings it out, because it's sort of just like, to me, it's more like it's just another day in my life. It's that talking about it and rationalizing it, because when you speak it, it's like, oh, this is true, like this happened, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I know I went on a segue, but I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that. So, please, if you have any of those, if you have depression or are suicidal, please just call 988, speak to somebody. Don't give in to the feelings. If the Kevin Von Erich knew, he would have been there for his brother. He would have 100% been there. He would
Right.
not have let him do it. So
yeah, I don't think either of the brothers would have let that
yeah,
happen if they knew. Which, yeah, I mean, like, that, like, it was I don't know any other word to say except for just beyond sad.
yeah, it's gut wrenching. Like, it's
Yeah.
just because, like, the predecessor up to this point is that Mike loved music so much, right? And he was actually trying to practice the guitar, and he couldn't do it. Like, his, chords were just incomplete, and his fingers, and, so that was his life. That was his love. And he lost it due to an accident that he probably was like, I should have never even been in that ring. I didn't want to be in that ring. I
Yeah,
don't like
I didn't even want to
wrestling.
be there,
And
kind of
so, of
thing.
course, he made a lifetime decision,
Yeah.
So
And that also is not even like that, again, not too far from David's death. So
maybe within a year.
yeah, I feel like it was within a year, which, I mean, again, we're just kind of speculating because obviously, like, it's not giving specific dates in the movie. But, like, there's a scene where the mom has her dress laid out for Mike's funeral, and Pam walks in, and she just says, I can't put it on. I can't put the dress on. And in a typical, like, Southern, like, especially like a Southern Texas, like, way, like, it's the same dress that I wore for David's funeral. People are gonna know. Which, you watch it and you're kind of like, people don't care, but that actually, like, it is a, like, mentality for, like, women in the South, like, the outward appearance needs to be polished and all that. But, like, Pam just, like, puts her arms around her, and she's like, nobody's gonna care. They love you. They love this family. They just want to be, they don't care. They just want to be here for you. They don't care what the dress is, which in reality is true. But I mean, that Southern mentality of keeping that, good appearance.
The feeling of judgment,
Yes. Which, I mean, like, I remember having that in my head when I was younger, growing up in the South. So,
yeah.
but
And
yeah,
so, go ahead.
go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Finish your statement.
But yeah, I mean, like, that was like the one moment that you really see, like, the mom's emotions.
And, like, the hard part is that, like, because it's based off of, essentially, it's the father and the four brothers, right? It's their dynamic and their draw into the story, right?
Yeah.
So the mother is sort of like a back character. So what you see of her is not like, she's sometimes, like, she has some speaking roles and sometimes she doesn't, but it's always like a back seat to whatever the dad wants and how he's going to do it.
Right.
And so it's sort of like this big defining moment, like, okay, she does care about her sons.
Yeah.
And she, like, obviously this is a big deal, but she is sort of, like, trapped within this, relationship where she can't thrive herself, sort of thing. And you sort of see that at the end of the movie, but it's rough.
And of course, now you've got two brothers left.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin and Carrie. Um, like I said, Carrie does go back to the ring with WWF, but is
Well,
not on the main. Like he's kind of still like a secondary.
yeah, he's not on the main roster. It doesn't look
Yeah,
like. But before that, though, um, Kevin wrestles Ric Flair for the belt again. So, because obviously Kerry can't do it because he's still trying to get back on his leg and make sure he can wrestle and get back on his. I was going to say feet, but obviously that's very insensitive. Um, couldn't help it.
I know.
Um, but so he's trying to get back into form, is what I'm saying. But Kevin, who's still in shape and doing all this, uh, they're like, okay, Kevin, it's all on you. You need to wrestle Ric Flair. Um, and Kevin at this instance has been sort of being pushed down the rope because his dad's sort of like putting all of his emphasis on the other brothers at this point.
Yeah,
For whatever reason, even though Kevin's the oldest and he's had more experience and all this
he's been
other
doing it
stuff.
the longest. He's the
Yeah,
one that's probably like he's probably the better of them as far as wrestling.
yeah, technical skills.
Yeah, but the dad always picks one of the other brothers.
Yep.
So now he's got no choice, pretty much, but to pick Kevin.
So yeah.
And also, like, I think one thing that like is kind of important is, he's got his wife Pam, and she's kind of like, I feel like she's kind of showing him like, hey, you can talk about how you feel, like it's okay. So she's kind of showing him like another path.
Well, he also has a child at this point too because they got married. It was a shotgun marriage. She was pregnant.
Yeah.
Um, but at this
Well,
point, like,
she wasn't showing that
yeah,
they
yeah,
yeah, they didn't tell the family it was a shotgun wedding. He only told David.
yeah. And so essentially, they go into this. He's got a kid. At this by this point, so he's having to raise a kid, and all this crazy stuff is happening, and like he sort of like goes into this emotional shell where it's just not himself, and she has to draw him out of it, and she's like, listen, like, I need you here, like I need you present and accounted for, like, you know
Yeah.
like I need your help with our baby. And he's just like, no, I can't do it, just can't do it, just can't, no. And he's like in his head because he's like, this family curse has just destroyed his very existence, because
Yeah.
Kevin is all about his brothers. Like his brotherly love is just so intense. Like he's just like, like I would do anything for my brothers. Like my brothers are my world, sort of thing. My family is my world.
Yeah. And he's lost two of them.
Two of them.
I mean, technically three of them, because like I said, the oldest brother died when they were all still kids.
Yeah.
So
He had
I
to
mean,
be like 7, 8, maybe 9 tops.
yeah, because I think Kevin says he was 5 when his oldest brother died. But I mean, Pam does get him out of it because she's just kind of like, no, like I need you. Your baby needs you. So he does get out of it, but I feel like that also kind of, because he's a dad, because he's a husband, changes his thought process in a way.
It's slow.
It's very slow. It's not like a click and all that.
Well, because you gotta like, you're also like skipping over the fact where like she sort of kicks him out because she's like, if you can't be present and here, like I don't want you here. And he's like, I've got to wrestle, like I got to get this belt, I got to focus on this to support you guys and do all this. So he's sort of like in this like,
damned if I do, damned if I don't.
Not really. I mean, it's more like this pull between like his dad's like, I'll only love you if you give me the belt, and his family obligation to, support and provide for his family, sort of thing. So he's got this pull And unfortunately, his dad's pull sort of wins because he's like, I gotta get the belt, and that's how I'll help you guys. Because if I get the belt, then all this stuff, it's very internalized.
Yeah.
So, he ends up going to fight Ric Flair, and he just loses it like completely.
It's
Like,
like a mental break, basically.
yeah,
And he just wails on Ric
just
Flair.
wails on Ric Flair. Um, Obviously they didn't like the way this is showing is it wasn't like they were following like a script because it didn't seem to be very scripted. Like there's like today's wrestling has a story formula. Back then it didn't seem very story driven. It just seemed like whoever wins sort of thing. Like it's a real like just throw them in there, and you know if you win because of this, then they win because of this, or maybe there might be like, hey,
Yeah.
you're gonna win, but this is like this is what's gonna happen sort of thing. It wasn't like a production.
Yeah.
So he goes out there, and him and Ric Flair just go at each other, and he ends up doing his dad's move, which is called the iron. Put it pretty much over the base where the temples are and the skull, and you just like force the pressure of your
Squeeze, yeah.
hand and squeeze the hell out of. And it can hurt if you've got strong hands. And they had strong hands because apparently, like to train for it, they would actually like rip telephone books, like because they show the practice of one of the brothers ripping telephone books at one point. So like, it's gonna hurt. And of course, he gets disqualified, and he's like, "Fuck, I just fucked that up royally." Um, you know, blah blah blah. So he's in the back of the ring, in the
Locker room.
locker room, and dad, of course, comes in, and brother comes in, and they're like, "What the fuck, Carrie? Like, why the fuck did you do that? Like, you just, blah blah blah." Not being like, "Carrie, dude, are you all right? Like, dude, you just like lost it. Like, what's going on, man?"
Yeah.
No, it was all about like you
You
fucked this
screwed
up
this
for
up.
us.
Yeah.
And then Ric Flair comes in, and he's like, "Dude, you're intense as fuck. I didn't think you had it in you," and everything else like that. He's like, "I'll give you a title shot, whatever you want. Just bring that heat again, and we're good to go. Let's go get drunk someplace." And of course, the brothers are still there, and he's like, they're like just listening, and Kevin to Ric Flair is just like, "Nah, I don't want to go get drinks. Like, I've it's been a rough couple weeks, and he's like, all right, well, whatever. If you want to go out, just let me know. I'm at the whatever hotel he's at."
Yeah.
And they don't say anything to him. They just look. The brothers, the dad, Fitz and Carrie, just look at him like, wow, I can't believe you just got so lucky, sort of thing. But Kevin's just like shaking his head, like, fuck this nonsense. And then all of a sudden, it flashes forwards.
Yeah.
Like there's like a huge time gap.
Yeah. We're like I said, Carrie is working for the WWF.
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say that. They show Kevin walk up to the mom or his wife. Sorry.
Yeah. I feel like when they flash forward, it doesn't seem like Kevin is wrestling. He's more coaching, and he's running the sportatorium, which is this like arena that the dad created for the wrestling.
Looks like he was the owner.
He was the owner, but I'm saying like he created it, like, and was it like I think Carrie came home for Christmas, and
Yeah.
like you can tell like Carrie's got to be like strung out or high or something, like, because he's all like, he brought a girl home and it's just this random chick, and he's like just a little hyper, and he's like, I got dad this great present, I want to give it to him now. The mom's like, no, we always wait till, I think, was it like Christmas Eve or Christmas Day or whatever. He's like, no, I want to give it to him now, and he pulls it out, and it's this like vintage gun. It's in this like nice box and all this, and the Dad goes, "Thank you," and typical Texas fashion, there's a gun display case in the home. Like I said, there's like the stereotypical things you think of when you think of Texas in this movie. And of course, Carrie's like, "No, you gotta shoot it. That's why I bought you the gun. No, don't just display it." And he just kind of like flips out. And they don't show like the rest of the evening. Like the next thing they show is Kevin and Pam are in bed. The phone rings. It's Carrie on the phone. And he's not doing good. He's like, "I can't do this, man." Like, he is suicidal and he's reaching out to Kevin for help. And like Kevin even asks, like, "Where's what's her name?" And he was like, "That wasn't serious, blah blah blah." And Kevin's like, "Go home, like come home, like, I'll be there." "I can't go home. I can't go home." And then he's like, "Well, come to my house." "Well, I'm not gonna let your kids see me like this." So he's like, Kevin is trying to like help because he obviously doesn't want to lose another brother. And I guess he convinces him to go to the family home. So Kevin gets into the truck to go to the family home, and there's a car there with the door open, and he gets out of the truck and runs in the house. The door to the house is open, and he goes to like the gun display case. It's open. There's a gun missing. And I think then we hear the gunshot.
Yeah, but prior to that, he calls his dad. He calls his dad to let him know, be like, "Hey, Carrie's on his way home. Carrie's like messed up. Like, just watch him. Just be there for him. Just to and
like take care of Carrie, please. Like, I'm on my way. Take care of Carrie." And the dad's like, "You take care of your brother."
Yeah.
And you're just like, what the fuck? Like, come on, man. Like, that's your son. Because I think he even says, like, "I've got chores to do." Because they have, like, a family farm. So, he's got to get up early and feed the chickens or whatever. And it's like, come on. Like, your one son is telling you that your other son is on his way. And he's messed up. Like, and he's begging you, like, "Watch him until I get there." And you won't do it because you've got some chores. The chores can wait.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because, like, so you see Kevin run up to the house and he's looking, and you see, of course, the gun case is open. So you're just sort of like, "Oh shit!" Like, then you hear the gunshot, and it's like, "Oh damn!" So Kevin goes running looking for Carrie, and like, there's this big oak tree. I think it's an oak tree. I'm not sure. I'm not very familiar with trees. In the yard, and he finds Carrie behind the oak tree, just laying there,
leaning against it.
And Kevin's like, screaming, "Kevin, Carrie, wake up, Carrie, wake up, Carrie, wake up." And then out from the field, you see the dad just coming. And of course, Kevin sees this, and he's just like, it breaks him again.
Yeah.
So he turns and he goes
to the dad.
Obviously, to the dad, and he fucking confronts his dad. And he's like, "Why couldn't she be there? I called you, I let you know." And then the dad is just like, "Well, he called you." And then that was it. Game was on. Kevin just attempts to kill his dad. He starts choking him out right there in the middle of the floor.
Basically like the front yard.
The front yard, yeah.
And I honestly was sitting there like, oh my god, is he gonna like actually like kill his father?
Which I mean, no one can blame him. Yeah.
Yeah.
But something something happens where he doesn't, right?
Yeah. I think even the mom has come out of this time.
I don't think so. I don't think they ever showed the mom during that
I feel
time
like
frame.
I feel like the mom did come out. I mean, obviously, like it was just crying and all that, but um, yeah, Kevin has now lost all of his brothers,
All four brothers.
and it's just like incredibly sad. Like, I mean, I remember being in the theater just watching it. Like, oh my god, like
I don't
how
think there was a
sad is
dry in the theater. Like everyone teared up.
yeah, like how sad is this to happen to one family? Like, how much can one family take? Um, but yeah, I mean, it's so sad. But I mean, it is of course beautifully told. Um, the Kevin is still alive.
Mhm.
To this day. They do actually show. I'm trying to think. I feel like before Carrie has committed suicide, Kevin actually sells the sportatorium.
I thought he sold it after.
I feel like he did it like. Okay, he did it after, but he
I
sells
think
the
that
sport.
was. Sorry,
As
I
like
thought
the
it was
last
like the.
straw.
Yeah, sort of thing.
And it's basically, like I don't want this to be my fate.
Yeah.
So he sells the sportatorium, which the dad has actually said, if you sell the sportatorium, like don't walk into this house. And you're just like, that is the one son you have left, and you're gonna tell him never to like set foot in your house again. Like, come on, man. But I think Kevin does the right thing. He sells the sportatorium because also I feel like he also sees that, like, he looks at the books
Mm-hmm.
and something's not adding up, because like they show Kevin with like I think two of the kids that he has at this point, and they're in this like little apartment. Pam has just come home from work. She's a vet. And they're in this little apartment. And Kevin looks at the books and it's like, okay, something's not adding up. And it basically looks like the dad was taking money out of Kevin's pocket and all the brothers' pockets. Because he confronts his dad, and his dad's like, what, you think like living here was free? And it's like, you need to tell somebody if you're garnishing their wages for rent and food and whatever. Even if it's your own kid. But yeah, he sells the sportatorium. Kevin and Pam buy basically their dream home. They buy like a house that's got some land, and they get to have their little ranch. And I forgot how many kids he actually ends up having, but
I think
they
it's
have
like
all these.
4 or 5.
Yeah, he has all these kids, and then they have like 13 grandkids. And they say at the very end of the movie, the whole family lives on this land with Kevin and Pam. Which in the beginning of the movie, like Pam says, what, like on their first date, what do you want? And Kevin says, I just want a nice house somewhere and enough space for my brothers to live with me. And he doesn't get his brothers to live with him, but his children and his grandkids end up living with them, which, like, it would have been nice, yes, if the brothers could have lived with him, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But at least he's got his other family, like his like children. So it's kind of like, I think silver lining is the wrong word, but like at least there is a little bright light in the story.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. At least there's like a little, flicker of life or hope left.
And the family has been inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame. And they even say, like, they're still known as one of, like, the best wrestling families in WWE history. But, like, you're just like, but at what cost? Like, and it just has you thinking about the pressures that parents can put on kids, and how back then, like, mental health was not a thing. Like, really, it wasn't a thing. And it's just, it's a beautiful story, but it's a sad story.
Yeah, it's heart-wrenching.
Yeah. Like, and, like, I feel bad saying it, because, like, I feel like it's gonna make some people not want to watch the movie, but you should totally watch the movie. The story, they like I said, I don't know, like, the actual story. I only know what they portray in the movie, but how they portrayed it was beautiful. The actors were great, the cinematography was great, like, everything was really well done. To the point where, like, this is one of those movies that I'd be surprised is not nominated for some kind of award.
Yeah, it should be.
Yeah.
I mean,
I feel like it would be an injustice if it's not nominated for some kind of award. Be the actors are nominated, their cinematography is nominated, or some aspect of it, if not more than one aspect, should be nominated.
yeah.
But I guess, like, one thing we always do here is, after we see a movie, it's reflecting on how it affects us in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you kind of went into already your personal effect.
Yeah, I mean, but that doesn't really, like, affect our relationship. But it makes
Well, I was gonna say
me...
your personal.
Yeah, yeah. Like, to me, this makes my relationship with you stronger, as well as, like, an outlet, right? Because as going through those experiences myself, maybe not to the degree they had, because obviously they had not only outside forces, but inside forces as well, playing a huge significant part on them, their character. It just signifies how important bonds with other people are, and how, if you don't do, I hate to say the right things, but if you don't open yourself up, because, like, you might be hurting inside and you might not want to put that on another person, but if you don't, it can just lead to so much more. So, like, to me, it just strengthens the fact that, like, I have you to lean on. Like, if I have, someone to talk to. And I think that's why Kevin had it, I wouldn't say easier, but he had it a little bit better,
He had an
because
outlet.
he had Pam as, as that person he could talk to vent to, that he could give his frustrations to, where you didn't really see that with any of the other brothers. Like, they didn't show any significant others, they didn't show girlfriends, they didn't show anything. Like, they were just so sucked into the void that it just eroded them. And that's the whole thing, is, like, I'm not saying, like, everyone should just go out there and just start dating someone just because of that. Like, find someone who you can trust, that you can believe in, that you can tell your deepest, darkest secrets to, that you can tell your hopes and dreams to, that isn't just going to laugh at you or just make fun of you or try and, like, warp you to, what they want. Like, it's a give and take thing.
Yeah.
And so, to me, that, like, this makes that stronger, because, like, when we first got together, like, I told you my hopes and dreams. Like, I didn't shy away from them. And instead of you being like, haha, that's funny, that's never going to happen, you're like, okay, well, let's try and help you achieve them. What can we do to get you there, sort
Yeah.
of thing. And that's, that hasn't changed at all in the 5 years we've been together. So, and that's, something that makes watching this movie is sort of like, hey, we need to this path needs to continue onward because, it is a vital part of our relationships.
Yeah. But also, like, in the beginning of our relationship, you also opened up about your past and
I did.
your suicide attempt, which, like, being the person, like, being told that you never know the right thing to say, the right thing to do, or even if there is one. And it is scary to hear that because, especially in the beginning of a relationship, because this is a person you're starting to develop feelings for, and you don't want to worry about, like, is this person going to do something to themselves? Like, you don't want this person to go away. And I remember having that fear, because I didn't want there to be another attempt. And I think knowing that from the get-go and you being so open and honest about not just your emotions and your hopes and dreams and your thoughts, but also about your mental health. Like, we both have mental health issues. We both suffer from depression. We both have ADD, ADHD. Obviously, it affects each one of us differently. But I think even being open and honest about that, because that's a lot. Like, to be honest, it's a lot to put on another person. Because you're basically asking that person, like, okay, not only do I need you, like, I want you to have a relationship with me and have a future with me, but there's gonna be times that I've got to lean on you a little bit more than someone without these mental illnesses would, because I'm going through this. And I feel like it takes a strong person to take that up. And I feel like because both of us have mental illness, it was a little not easier, but like we knew what we knew what we were getting into a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I don't think I could be with somebody who didn't understand what I'm going through when I have, like, my lows. Because, I mean, there are days when I'm just like, I'm having a bad day. Like, I just need to curl up in bed, watch movies, watch TV, and just be left alone, or like something like that. And when we both have those kind of days and we tell each other, we give each other either the space that they need or the company that they need. And I feel like with this, like, I mean, Pam did that for Kevin. And I feel like we do that for each other. I mean, luckily, knock on wood, we both have not had our lows at the same exact time, or where they're both low enough that the other person can't carry the load or, be the shoulder to lean on.
Yeah, but I also think, though, that, like, I've always been a big adamant supporter, though, of, like, mental health. Like, I was always, insistent, like, hey, like, I'm going to see a therapist as well. Like, I've never always been like, you are my only support aspect. Like, you are a strong supporter of me, but you're not my only support. Like,
Right.
I always have been that person. So, there's that to it as well. Like, and when I told you, like, hey, I'm going back to therapy, and you weren't just like, okay, why do you need therapy? You're like, okay, that's good. And
Yeah.
then once I started going more and you started seeing the improvements I was making and the things that I was slowly changing, you're like, okay, I'm going to go to therapy too, for yourself. It
Yeah.
wasn't, and I said, good, you should. I think you should go to therapy. And, I've always been that big adamant person. Like, everyone should go to therapy. I don't care who you are, whether you think you're 100% perfect or not, you should still go to therapy just to be able to tell somebody, you know, those, things that you don't feel you can tell anybody else.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was it's always been a combination of things, right? Like, we are supportive of each other and the things that we do, but we're also doing the things that don't make it so, like, if we were both in a low period, that we would sort of feed off of each other and get even lower or lower. It's more like, you know, hey, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. What do you need? What
Yeah.
do you need? And you're the more type to be like, I just want to be left alone, where I'm more the type where I'm like, I want to watch funny movies and just lay there. Like, I might not talk to you, but I just want your presence there.
Yeah.
So, and that's like I feel like that's a major difference between the two of us anyway, though, because like, my lows, I want a little bit of human interaction, where your lows, you sort of just want yourself.
Yeah. But that's the thing with mental illness. Everybody's different.
Yeah,
You can have the same diagnosis, but how you cope and
Yeah.
how it affects you, it's different for everybody.
Of course.
So, but yeah, I mean, we give each other what we need to help the person during that time.
Yeah.
Um,
But I also feel like we're not going, like, we might be going into a little bit much, but at the same instance, though, I might give you your space, but I still, hey, do you need something? I'm going downstairs to get XYZ. What do you need something? Because a lot of times, like, I know for myself, like, I can't get out of bed. Like, if my depression is on, like, I'm not leaving the room. Like,
yeah.
I'll go to the bathroom and things of that nature, but I'm probably not showering. I'm probably not shaving, even though I haven't shaved in months, so that's no big deal.
You're not going to the kitchen to
I'm
get
not going
yourself
to the
food.
kitchen
Yeah.
to get myself food. I just have a remote in my hand, and all I'm doing is watching Adam Sandler movies and something I've seen 1,000 times that I can laugh to.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like, I want bad food. I want like pizza and crap food, just to make me feel a little bit better. But I do the same with you, though. Like, you take care of me in those instances. You come downstairs and get whatever I need and bring it up and order food if we want to. And I feel like I do the same. Like, you might be in the bedroom alone and I'm downstairs, but I'll text you or call you and be like, hey, do you need anything, every so often? And, we sort of, even if I am in a low, I'm still like, hey, I'm down here. Do you need something?
Yeah.
Or if we're in a low and we're upstairs, because, my low is a little bit higher, you're like, hey, do you need something? So it's a give and take. It is a, recognizing where we're each at, but it's also, we're not introducing more chaos. We're not introducing, um, more conflict. We're not like beating each other up. We're not like yelling at each other. We're not like, why haven't you cleaned the room in 800 days, or,
Yeah.
anything
Like,
of that nature.
like, just get up, snap out of it.
Yeah.
Like, and I feel like somebody who does not have depression or anxiety or ADD, like, does not have a mental illness, it's kind of hard for them to understand that. I feel like that's like one of the biggest, like, misunderstandings between people that have mental illness and people that don't, is people that don't might think, oh, they can just snap out of it. Like, if they just get out of bed, take a shower, go outside, they'll be fine. And it's like, no, that's not always the case. So I think the fact that we came in both already knowing that helped. Because, like, there would probably be instances where one of us would say the wrong thing to the person in the depression, like say, hey, just get up, like come on,
Yeah.
like just snap out of it, and that would either piss the other person off or make them spiral. So I think the fact that we knew kind of what to do, like kind of like to have that patience coming in was definitely a big help.
Yeah. So all in all, to add to the movie aspect and what it brings to our relationship, I think it makes it stronger that like you understand the emotional pain and recognizing that and seeing that in the other individual, like it and also like my own pain, like being more forthcoming with it and being more open and honest with it instead of trying to bottle it in and hide it. I feel like that in itself, because like let's be honest, this is 5 men we're talking about, 5 adult men, and of course obviously it's the 70s, 80s, and 90s where men are men and women are women, and men don't show their feelings because there's numerous instances where the dad's like, you will not cry and you'll stand strong and stoic. Well, I use stoic loosely. To me that's like gives me the exact opposite of what it should be. So like I want to do the exact opposite of that aspect, like be more forthright with my emotions, be more open and honest about my feelings, and especially in this relationship. So to me that's what it really draws out more, to continuously do what I'm doing currently, because that's what I do. Like I don't hide my feelings, I don't hide my emotions, I don't really
like keep the communication open.
yeah. So, and yourself?
No, I mean, like I definitely think like I took more out because of like Pam and Kevin's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, same thing, like it proves to be there for the other person, to keep the communication open, and kind of it's okay to cry, it's okay, which I feel like is actually harder for me than for you, which, stereotypically it's usually harder for the man to cry.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it's harder for me to cry and to even show you when I cry, just because who knows why. It's something
Mm-hmm.
I'll figure out in therapy at one point,
Yeah.
I'm sure. So I mean, it just kind of in like strengthened the like, okay, I basically like kind of like I want to be like Pam. I want to make sure that I continue to be there for you and support you, and um you know be the person that you can come to and talk to, and be an equal partner.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that's what I took out the most was, I want to be more like Pam and Kevin. Um, just minus the sad family stuff, obviously, because I mean,
Yeah.
um, I feel like it could have been a lot worse. Like Kevin could have met the same fate if it wasn't for Pam.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Who knows what would have happened if Pam,
yeah,
he could have killed Ric Flair.
yeah. I mean, and I feel like the actual, like the real Kevin Von Erich probably has even thought about that. Like, what would have happened to me if my wife didn't walk into my life? Like,
Yeah.
there's no doubt in my mind that the real man has thought about that.
Yeah.
So
On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being never ever again they could burn the film roll and you'd be content with it, and 10 being perfect movie, how would you rate it?
the first number that comes to my head is 7.
So a C in American scaling.
I mean, it's and the only reason why it's a little bit lower is because you have to be emotionally okay with watching the movie. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a movie that you just put on any old time
No.
because of the story. You kind of have to be like emotionally prepared. Like,
Yeah.
there are some times that you just want to see like a sad, beautiful story, and you have to be in that frame of mind to watch this movie.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is not the movie that you want to watch when you want to laugh or you want
No.
the happy ending, you know, the good guy wins. This is just, you want that emotional pull that, you know,
You want a good
it's,
cry?
yeah, you want a little cry, you want that sad, like I said, sad, beautiful
Yeah.
story. So that's the only reason why I say a 7. I mean, like, it's a beautiful story. I mean, maybe 7.5.
So I'm going 8.5, almost 9. I mean, like, cinematography is amazing. The story is amazing. Like, I don't think there was a moment where like I wasn't drawn in and wanted to know more.
Yeah.
I'd say more 8.5 because realistically, it is a very slow draw. But and it can be a little bit like what's the word I'm looking for? Um, Antagonizing because of like how slow it is. Um, but it's not supposed to be a fast-paced movie. It's supposed to
Yeah.
be this story-driven event. It's supposed to, you know, encapsulate you and be like, okay, what's happening? Why is this story being told? Sort of thing.
Yeah. This
Um,
is definitely a movie you need to see in theaters, or when it comes to streaming services, you don't do anything else. You
yeah,
focus on this movie and this
yeah.
story.
And so, like, to me, like, now again, like, I'm not gonna just like, this is not like, even though I give it a good score, an 8.59, like, I'm not just gonna like now go back into theaters today and be like, okay, I'm gonna watch it a second time. No, it's probably gonna be like a while before I watch it, just
Yeah,
because like,
you need a minute.
yeah, it's just so intense. Like, because once the story takes effect, like once essentially David passes away, like it's just full tilt. Like there's no
Yeah.
stopping it. It's like a snowball rolling down a hill. It just keeps picking up steam, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like I couldn't handle it. Like if like you were like in a month's time, be like, hey, let's watch the Iron Claw again. I'd be like, I'll pass. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
Like I said, you have to be emotionally ready to watch it again.
yeah. I mean, but it is still a great story. It's a story that needs to be told. I'm glad it has been told. Honestly, even as a wrestling fan, like I've never heard of them, but that's not saying much. Like I'm not like this huge like
You're not
dig into
uber fan.
wrestling. Yeah. So, but either way, like this is a story that people should know. Like not only does it like show people like wrestling is this chaos, this, thing, there's still stuff behind it. There's people involved with it. It's not just, a fake thing. It is real. It's 100% real. People get
Yeah.
hurt. Obviously people lose their lives over it. I mean, it's intense.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we've gone way over our normal allotted time, but I feel like in this case it is well worth it. So
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for listening the extra time. As Thomas said before, if you do have suicidal thoughts or any kind of crisis, please reach out to somebody, even if it's a friend or family member that you can trust. You you're not alone. There are mental health professionals. There are crisis hotlines.
988.
988. So definitely, please utilize all the tools that we as a society now have in hand.
Shoot, even if you feel like you have no one, go to the hospital.
Yes.
I mean, go to the emergency room.
Yeah.
So,
And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. This is definitely a good movie to watch. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say beyond that.
Well, thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope you have a wonderful new year. Get everything that you work hard to achieve this year. As always, we are on all major platforms for podcasting. So please.
Yep. We're everywhere you can get a podcast. We are on YouTube. So if you're listening to us podcast wise, you can also watch us on YouTube. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Facebook. And you can always email us at loveandmoviespod@gmail.com.
You do that a lot.
I know, because there's another film called Love and Music or something like that.
Yeah, there's a movie. Yeah, Love and Music.
So my brain goes to that. But anyway, we'll have to do it. Maybe we'll do an episode on that one day. So
yeah.
All right, guys, have a great day, and we will see you next time.
Have a good one.